Yes, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Easy Collect. I'm Jane Evio, Head of Customer Success, and today I'm joined by AJ, CEO and co-founder of Easy Collect.
I'd like to thank you, everyone, for joining us today on this 15-minute product spotlight. Something actually new that we're doing to keep these webinars really short, really sharp on topics that we know matter to you. So towards the end of this webinar, we'll put up a small poll to see what are some of the future topics that you would like to learn about, and if this is an effective way for you to learn as well.
Exactly. And today we'll focus more on how to make effective collection calls. And here's the agenda that we'll go through today in this really quick one. Hopefully, like what AJ said, you'll take away a lot of tips and tricks. And at the end, we'll also share some free resource with you. So we'll go through how to systemize your collection calls, obviously using Easy Collect for that. We'll also go through how to leverage these credit scores and really make sure you prioritize which one you need to call first, and at the same time have a humanized aspect to that. And finally, obviously, all the proven tips and tricks that we've learned and that we want to share with you as well.
Yep, perfect. So there's a lot of chat messages happening in the background from people who, so like on the call, we have almost 80, 90 people on the call today, and so there's a lot of customers who are on the call today. We also have new customers and new prospects that we don't even know. And I just want to say hi to all the customers that we have worked with over the last 3 to 4 years. For some of you, it's the first time you're probably seeing us face to face. So I'm really glad we can connect in this way, and thank you for making the time to actually join. So Jane, can you start this timer? We promised everyone 15 minutes. Everyone's probably busy to get back to work, and if you're working from home, probably get back to managing home and kids and everything else. So we'll keep this to the point, and we'll get started. So this topic, why we talked about collection calls, it's something which is really important during this time about connecting to people and having that human connection. And one of our customers, Amanda Lee, she is very passionate about this topic, and it's kind of inspired from her why we did this topic as well. So if she's on the topic, if she's on the webinar, thank you, Amanda, for all your assistance in putting this topic together. So what we want to go through is really for our existing customers and for some new customers here, what is it that is important when you want to get paid on time? And one of the things that's really important is making calls to your customers. We all know that you can automate emails and whatnot, but calls is something which people don't do as much, and what we want to share with you is some actual data on what works with calls and what are the types of calls that like when. So what works with calls? When should you be making the calls, and what should you be saying on the calls? So what I'll kick off with here is our communication rules screen, which some of you are quite familiar with. And here what you see is a series of steps that allows you to systemize your collections. We all know that getting paid is all about that squeaky wheel, being persistent, polite, and personal in your communications to your customers. So what you can see here is just an example of how someone could set up their communication plan. So you have your pre-reminders, so before the actual invoice is due. And what we find is, and Jane, this is very much based on the actual data that we have, the first couple of steps of your follow-up doesn't have to be a phone call, because what we see is about 30 to 40% of customers actually do pay on an email or on an SMS or on a letter by post, or however you want to communicate with your customers. And what the actual data shows is that these are your sort of low-hanging fruit. These are your sort of good customers that you don't need to spend resource or time on actually calling. And you'll get a pretty good result with that 30 to 40%. But what we find is that if you keep doing that for all your 6 steps, you actually will not get the collection rate that you need. And the ideal time to do a call is actually the 3rd and the 6th follow-up is what we find, because at the 3rd follow-up, people need to be called, people who are ignoring those first couple of steps. And Jane, typically, what's a good time to make the 3rd call in terms of the number of days from when it's actually overdue? What is it that you think is the best time?
Yeah, so We always look at the intervals between each follow-ups, and you don't obviously want to be too annoying, have multiple follow-ups in like the next day or so. But actually we think that the 7 days interval, AJ, works really well. So that is acceptable. Obviously everyone has different processes, so just have to be mindful of that. Some people have the 5-day interval, and that also works really well. Yes. And as what AJ was saying, inserting that call, right after 2 follow-ups will really help sort of filter down. You may have, 60 clients that have gone through those 2 follow-ups, and by the time they go to the 3rd call, you'll only have 10 more clients to call. So it's good.
Yeah. And I think also maybe if, like you say, 7 days is the right thing, but I wouldn't do 7 days, 7 days, 7 days, 7 days, because then you're possibly reaching out on the same day of the week to that accounts payables person. You probably want to do different days so that what if they only work on a Monday and a Friday? You'll never get to them. So you really want to try like maybe 5 and 7 and 8, like just some sort of, you can average it out to 7, but maybe different numbers as well helps. So
Absolutely.
You can reach someone on a different day, right? Now, when a call's actually due, the system will prompt you to actually make a phone call. It'll send you a list of the tasks that you have to make, right? Which is something which, if you're an EasyCollect user, you're probably very familiar with an email like this that comes to your inbox that says, hey, you're going to make all these calls. This is a really busy day of calling for this particular person, but you can see there's a whole bunch of calls to be made.
AJ?
I clearly haven't done my phone calls. Now, one thing to mention is when you make having a call is really, really important, because during this time, connecting with someone is key. Especially now, people are all working remotely. They don't have that human interaction. What we're hearing from our customers and from other feedback that we're hearing is these calls are more effective now than ever, because people actually like to have some human connection. They like to talk to someone. They like not to have everything on a Zoom call. Call your customer, have a chat with them, and actually empathize with them. And we'll talk about that in a minute, how you can use data to empathize even more. But one thing that we want to point out is sometimes you can't make a call. You are busy. You've got other things on. You might be sick. So the thing is, having a call is really important, but what you can also set up with an EasyCollect is this little thing, if you don't already know this, is an email that'll be sent if you can't make a call. Because we do understand that, look, calls are the optimal thing during this time, but sometimes you just can't get to it. And it's better to have a communication, even if it's an email or an SMS, rather than no communication. So this setting, what it does, it allows you to send an email automatically. It'll automatically send an email if you haven't made your call for 2 days after the due date of the call, right?
Yep. So it's your backup plan. Yes.
Yeah. It is I think that's probably said better. It's your backup plan. That's it. And so and this is a backup email that would get sent if you are not able to make that call. So that's just something I'd mention to you. And then the other big thing that we're seeing really being effective at the moment is a thank you message. So when your customers actually do pay you, yes, the system can automate a thank you message, but I think what's really important, and this is a tip again from one of our customers, is if you have 100 of your customers, take 30 in the first month, 30 in the second month, 30 in the next month, and every time they pay you, right, just give them a call to say thank you for your payment. Because in this time, everyone's doing it tough, and if you actually get money and someone's paying you, just don't chase them, don't have any other ulterior motive, don't try and sell them anything, just say thank you for the payment. We really appreciate that you made the effort during this tough time, and that's all. And that means so much to people. We've had such good feedback on people using that.
That's a really good point, AJ. And as you move to your task, this is actually one of the reasons some of our clients use this call list, not even to do some chasing, but really to do some account management. And, like what AJ said, thanking them for the business, for supporting, especially during this hard time. I think that little connection always helps, when you're on the other side, if that business is struggling and you're checking in on them. I think that's really key and important during this time. Yeah.
Yeah. So that call list that I showed you on the email, when you log into EasyCollect under your tasks, you'll actually have the calls that you have to make. So you have that big list. This is a big list of calls. And what you have here is a start of using data to make your calls more effective. So, we talked about the second agenda point is how do you use data to humanize your calls? So here, for example, you have the customer name when the call's due. So we mentioned, calls are the third and the sixth step. So this is the sixth step. So this is my second time that I have to make the call to this customer. I can see how much overdue it is, the balance owing for that customer, and when the call's actually due. And I can sort any of these columns as I like. But what you'll notice is a new thing here called risk level. So risk level, for some of the customers on the call might already be seeing this if you've got that module activated. For some of you, if you don't, just contact CS and they can activate that for you. But really what the risk level is actually external data coming in from a credit reporting bureau. In this case, it's a company called Dun & Bradstreet, who in Australia is called Illion. It's one of the leading credit reporting bureaus. And what a credit reporting bureau is, it assesses risk of customers in the market. So it takes data from lots of different sources, and it says customer, in this case, say Welsh, Cole & Wolf, they've classified it as a moderate risk. And what we do is we take that data and we look at how they're paying you, and we help you give you a little risk group. So we say, for example, this customer is to be watched and monitored. Why? Because they're paying you relatively well on time. I mean, there may be a couple of invoices that are old, but the external data, as you can see here, is showing that they might be paying other suppliers in the market late. And again, to me, if I was running a business, this is superpowers. This is like, data that no one else knows, right? So when you go to call this customer, I would say you can use this data in a few ways. If someone's really high risk, don't use this data necessarily to say, hey, I'm going to put you on stop credit, but you can use this data to connect with them on a human level and say, you know what, I understand that you obviously can't say that you know they're high risk because that wouldn't make any sense to them, but you could say, I understand that things might be tough for you. How can we get you on a payment plan? How can we do something so you can make your calls more effective than saying, hey, why are you not paying late? They'll give you the same old excuse, and you'll go into this cycle that doesn't go anywhere, right?
Exactly.
You can use this data to actually,
that conversation. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah, start a conversation and also get an outcome that is meaningful. If the outcome is that they need a payment plan, we'll show you in a second how you can do that through here. You can get a little payment plan set up. Is it a case where you actually need to perhaps go to a third-party lawyer? If you need to do that, you can make that decision. Do you need to just give them more time? Are they a great customer? They're just having a tough time at the moment. And so through this data module, what you can do is you can get a credit report on a customer if you need to. You can monitor them. Monitoring is a way to get alerts sent to you if something's happening in their business in real time, like if a director resigns or a director changes, or if there's someone else has filed bankruptcy against them, you'll be in the know, right? So you can always have a pulse on what's happening with those customers that you'll be concerned about. But really what you want to do here is actually complete the call. So when you want to make this call to the customer, this is where you can put in the date. Let's say today's the date. And let's say the customer said, I don't have enough money to pay. Don't have enough cash. Can't spell, but I don't have enough cash. It's a pretty common excuse. So what we also promised you today was what do you do when someone has certain sort of excuses. So we have a call collection script that we're going to give away to everyone today that gives you actual solutions to the common problems, right? And what we're saying, when call collections are done right, it's about deepening your relationship with your customers. It's not about getting on the phone and actually harassing your customers. I really believe that EasyClick is a tool for accounts receivables people to deepen your relationship, not to actually, automate everything. And so if someone, doesn't have enough cash to pay, and we'll share this guide with you, by the way, after this webinar, you have some actual scripts here of what you can do. You would empathize with them, you'll hear their reasons, you'll thank them, you'll mirror their conversation, say, thank you, I understand it's really tough. How can we do this? How can we work on this together? If you say things like how and what can we do to do this, they'll share the problem with you as opposed to you just saying, hey, I need money today. So, mirror, empathize, ask calibrated questions, which is what we've all put into this document. So it's all kind of using some psychology here as well. And at the end of the day, this might look simple, but it's kind of just a way to really empathize with your customer. And so if you put a note that this customer doesn't have enough cash as your call note and you hit save, but let's say you've used the script to say, you know what, I'll actually set up a little payment plan with the customer when you send a confirmation email, which is what the system can prompt you to do, if I just preview it, you can set up a template here as a confirmation email to say, for customers that are actually having a payment issue, let's give them an arrangement to pay in 10 weekly installments, right? Which is a way that they can finance that payment and you get paid straight away. So if I click pay by installment, so I'm a little bit digressing here, they can actually pay you that invoice straight away and you'll get paid, but they have a way to then pay that over 10 installments, just for, example. I won't go into that too much, or you can do a direct debit with them, like offline direct debit, which you can do through Easy Collect, which you can say, pay this over 6 installments to my bank account. There are different ways to actually work with your customers. If you want to go to more detail, Jane and the team can take you through that. But there are lots of ways to give your customers payment options. Also, Brendan, you might want to just, Jane, you might want to just put up the poll as well, because when you've got a couple of minutes left, I want to just get some feedback from you. There's a poll that we're going to just put up in a minute that'll just ask you if this is too quick, too slow. Do you want to hear more about this? Just as I talk, you can feel free to answer the poll as we go through this. So, sorry, Jane, go ahead. You're going to say something?
Just to summarize what AJ said, obviously, you have different ways to go through the actual call system in Easy Collect, and having that call script to help you use it as a guideline. Sometimes it's kind of awkward when you're stuck into that reasoning that your client's giving you. So hopefully these resources that we're going to share with everyone will help you and your team be a little bit more comfortable in having that tough conversation. And again, after that phone call, make sure you do send that confirmation call email, just reiterating what was discussed, so you can predefine a template, offering different payment options. If you're not doing that, it's very important that you educate your customer what is available for them, not just the bank transfer, but credit cards. Customers are looking at different options and how they can extend their cash flow as well, so make sure you give them these different options, like what AJ said, payment plans, direct debits, credit card payments. Make it easy for them to make those payments, and also to reach out to you if they have any questions. Again, in that SimplyPay, they can look at all their invoices, and you can have that discussion at the same time. Like when you're over the phone, you can say, if you click that email, you can actually look at the invoice that I'm talking about, and then you can refer to the exact invoice, that you are questioning, or perhaps they're also struggling as well to see, what it is, or what is this amount made of.
Yeah, and one thing, Jane, which I don't know if you use as customers, that's really, really valuable, is if someone is on a payment plan, you want to stop chasing them for that period of time. So as part of making a call, also just realize that, look, hey, I need to pause a customer. Pausing a customer allows you to put a date. So I'll pause it for the next week because it's a payment plan, say, for a week, or even let's make it more realistic, like say 2 weeks. And it's a payment plan. What the pausing does, it actually will pause any collection activities that are automated through the system. And you can see there's a resume date in, say, 2 months' time. I think I may have selected 2 months. And what will happen is in 2 months, the system will check, have they paid? And if they haven't paid, it'll unpause and start chasing again. But if they have paid, it'll just stop any action. So pausing something which, if you don't use it, I'd recommend that you should really look at doing that as a way of managing your calls and promise to pays. Jane, how are we going with the timer? I do talk quick, but I think it's gone.
Yeah,
I think we're done.
I think we're almost there. We're almost done. We do have a quick question, so we'll get through to that. Just want to remind everyone that if you'd like to, there should be a poll that pop up in your screen if you'd just like to have a quick vote there, so that we know, what topics interest you for our next webinar series. But in the meantime, let's just go through one question, AJ, and then we can wrap it up. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
So there's one question here. How do we respond to customers not planning on paying in any hurry despite being over 45 days overdue and account on hold?
Yeah, so that's a good question. When someone's really overdue, firstly, have a look at the guide that we send, see if there's any tips there that you can get. But really, it's about you making a call of what's the history of this customer, what's the risk. Firstly, do you think they're just delaying payments, but they're really solid risk? So the risk is both your own internal gut feeling, but use the data. So, for example, you might want to go into scores and reports and say, let me do a quick credit score on this customer. So I don't know who actually asked the question, but if you want to, you can go and type in a customer's name. Like let's say I type in, Easy Collect in this case, and it'll bring up the Easy Collect score for that customer, right? So if you say, hey, it's actually a pretty high risk, then maybe you need to answer your question, go into debt collection. Maybe it's a case where you actually need to then say, I need to escalate to a third-party debt collector. Or maybe it's a case of saying, let's give them a call and say, is there a payment plan that you must adhere to in the next 10 days, or we will have to go to debt collection. I think having the data on hand helps you to make those decisions, what path to take. I don't know, did I answer the question, Jane, correctly, or is that...
Yes, I think
do you want to add
yeah.
to that? Yeah. There was a question as well, Jane, that just came up, is, sometimes what happens is you have a particular customer that has, say, 5 invoices that are owed, but there's one under dispute and they hold up the whole account for that one invoice. It's a pretty common tactic that people do use, so the question is very valid. What you should keep in mind as well, if one particular invoice on dispute, don't hold up the payment of the whole thing. Just say, fine, we'll deal with that later. Pay the rest of the account. So you can do that in a couple of ways. You can actually exclude the invoice from ever being followed up. So they just chase the other 2 invoices that are owed in this example, or if it's a case where you don't want to exclude it, then just keep in mind that sometimes is a tactic to delay payment. So just as a background thing to that question. Sorry, Jane. Yep.
No, that's all good. I think we have to wrap it up. AJ, do you just want to share the last screen so if they have any questions, they know, obviously, please contact the customer success. And like I said earlier, we will send this call guideline to everyone who attended as well as the recording. So, yeah.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Jane.
much for joining us. Have a great day.